Hello and welcome to Saro's webinar series on Saturday 11 a.m. Today we're going to discuss about how do we handle data breach. Data breach being a certain directive, a RBI guideline, a SEBI guideline, as well as now a data protection board guideline. Right? That is the importance and that is the seriousness that we are seeing for data breaches, because data is everything, right? And data is everything today that organizations are using. Data is also a lot of things when we as customers want to use an application, and we as customers want to grow our use of applications, our down the line what applications we want to use. So breach deteriorates the trust, right? And definitely, right, let's just kind of agree that the US government, after spending the most amount of money, is also getting breached. So it's not that breach cannot happen, right? It will happen, right? It depends how much money was invested to protect ourselves and how much money a hacker used to fight us, right? So and again, and I while I am here with you, I also want to let everybody join in. So, folks, we will start in another 3 to 4 minutes of the webinar, right? And then we will get going. We'll be full accelerator throttle. And but today, while I set context for you, and I have with me Mr. Ali, we are going to discuss a lot more about the data protection board's requirements of breach, right? And no, and definitely we'll combine it with other types of breach regulations, other types of breach requirements. But our focus today will be the DPDPA Act and what are these breach requirements, how do we handle breach, and how do we get going. Yeah. And that's where we are. So waiting for everybody to join in. Let's just spend 5 more minutes. It's a Saturday, right? So we will just spend 5 more minutes, let everybody join in, and then we'll get going. Yeah. By the way, till the time, Mr. Ali, where are you joining us from? Can you write in the chat? Hey, hi, Anil. It's good to see you. Hey, hi, Ragul. It's good to see you, Ragul. So we're just starting another. Hey, hi, Mona. It's good to have you, Mona. Thanks for joining in. Hey, Diksha. Bangalore. Yeah, a lot of people from Bangalore. So, yeah. I'll also be in Bangalore next week, by the way. But this week, we just opened our offices in Noida. So we're just setting things up. We have, this is our biggest office yet. So very big thing for us at Saro. And while we grow, while we work hard, while we sweat, this is something that is a big deal for us, right? Because I keep saying this to people, like, it's not a long time we have started, and when you don't have an office that big or that sorted, then things work differently, right? When you have a headquarters, things work differently. So now for us, it's a bit better, right? A bit more streamlined and a lot more work, right? That's what we look forward to. Okay, so now let's move on. Let's get going. So, uh, so we have to keep in mind that the discussion today is by us, me, as well as Mr. Ali, and we do not represent our organizations, right? And this is not a legal advice. the data, the discussion today is only for reference purposes, and our goal is to give you reference on how to implement data breach policies, data breach response, or help you understand how to respond to a data breach, right? But this is not a legal advice. Please do not use this as legal advice. Yeah. So today we have with us Mr. Ali Asgar Pancha, right, who's the director at Qualys for GRC, and he is an industry leader while this yeah, he's an industry leader and leads the GRC practice and Qualys, right? And I don't know if you guys know the company. I think one of the largest companies also, right, in across the world. And while managing GRC, I think the amount of complexities that he has been going through, I think that is an experience that we want to learn from him today and ask him certain questions to learn from him. Yeah. So Ali, would you like to introduce yourself as well while we get ahead to the audience?
Thanks a lot, Akash. And morning, folks. Afternoon, in case anyone's joining from another time zone. Although I guess say there'll be people from India joining, but I was hoping that there'll be people from the European side too, because I think it's high time that they too get well versed with our Data Privacy Act now. So yes, so like to introduce myself. Firstly, I head the GRC function at Qualys, the global GRC function, and I report directly into the CISO. And as Akash rightly pointed, we say face all sorts of say security related, compliance related, all of those data privacy related kind of day-to-day challenges, day-to-day task handling that we need to do on our side. So as Qualys, I hope say most of you are say known to Qualys. In case you're not, we are a 2 decade old, a little more than 2 decade old SaaS organization. We were, I think, the pioneer on say the cloud service provisioning. So therefore, our say software as a service is a cloud service offering to our customers, and we are on a mission to offer these services for automating and managing our customers' underlying security posture in the most say reasonable and cost-effective manner. So that is the mission that we are trying to serve, and with that, I think we are better placed to handle say data privacy or say the newer age exploits that we see today. Thanks, Akash. Back to you.
Yeah, and I think listening to you, I feel like I want to reword it as well. I think you are inventors of SaaS, right, in security. So I think I would kind of reword it like that. And invention, I think 20 years, 2 decades, like 20, that means 2002, right? And when internet
1999.
was also 1999, crazy.
Yeah.
I think that time internet was starting, right? Internet was
Yes.
going across.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
what a
That was
time to be in security, at that time for an organization, I think that's great. I didn't think it's 20 years, right? I didn't
yeah.
calculate that. I'm amazed, honestly, as a moderator
Yeah.
today. Okay,
Yes.
so while we get into in nitty-gritties, right? While we get into a breach, would you quickly help the audience here, about like different types of breaches? Like how do you see them? What is the difference that you see, a bit difference from the current breach structure reporting to a DPDP structure reporting? Just a bit more about clarity to the audience, Mr. Ali, and then we will move on from there.
Sure. I think today marks a very important, say, day in the history of this Data Privacy Act that has been published by the government. So it was, I think, exactly a year back. I think today is the anniversary, 11th of August, maybe tomorrow. Yeah. when this was first published in the official gazette, and thereafter, say, it was assented by the president, by a president, right? And what we are hearing now is the bill shall soon come in force, maybe by the next winter session of the parliament of the Rajya Sabha. And we are waiting for the rules. I think there is a first draft of the rules that is currently open for any online objection suggestions from, say, our citizens. And once I think that is done, we will have those, say, shortly released, in order to have this, say, DPDPA into force. I think it took quite some time, quite a while, but yeah, we have been able to, say, achieve this concise, say, new set of sections, which are very focused to, specifically, the digital personal data protection and privacy.
Yeah. Uh, let's move on then. So
Hello?
I think anniversary is tomorrow. I
Yeah,
didn't think about that.
yeah.
That
I just wanted to also add, I think, some history background, right? So I think back in 2012, when, I think the earlier Justice AP Shah, right, they had, say, handled a case, I think a couple of cases, right? When, of course, we were talking about a while ago, the advent of, say, social media, WhatsApp, those kind of things were, say, underway. So I think those cases, say, profoundly, say, related to the constitutional right to privacy. This then again got resurfaced in 2017, when I think the Justice Puttaswamy, erstwhile, right? He actually, back in 2017, invoked, that the Article 21 of the Constitution to be updated, to that effect, to include, say, right to privacy as being a fundamental right. So I think now the wait for, these rules to be published. I think I, would tag it as one of the phrase in Mahabharata, which says "Shakti bina Shiv, be shav hai," right? So a similar thing, without the rules, the act currently is not getting enforced. But once we have those rules published, I think we'll have it enforced.
yeah, and I think I'll just kind of come back to you for that phrase, right? And probably do a meme
Yeah,
on that on LinkedIn. I think that's
sure.
always a. I think
Sure.
I'm feeling great talking to you also, like listening
Yeah.
interesting stuff today. What
And
about
I,
what do you think about personal data breach? Like when you look
Akash,
at
if you
yeah,
allow me, I wanted to just go into some of the, say, quick facts. Usually it's a Saturday. I won't. I know, say, people are, say, dedicating their time to this session. I don't want to, of course, give them a lot of information to bore them. I know the topic is such, right? But just wanted to, say, give them some background, or some, say, quick facts, right? So, this, if you don't mind, yeah. So this term, say, privacy, right, it has been a very old, say, the privacy laws, which are dated back to 1860. I think most of you might not know, but the ancient Greece, right, they had, say, a set of rules that they wanted to embark on against, say, some allowing their neighbors peeping into their homes, right? So it actually surmounted to breach of their privacy, mostly, say, territorial privacy. That is as early that the term, say, privacy was, say, spoken of, and it came into, say, recognition. Thereafter, I think we have heard, say, a lot of, say, password origins, which took place in the same, say, Greek era, right? Wherein we heard of, say, the Caesar cipher. I think most of you would be acquainted with that. And there were watchwords, right? They were the ones who, say, originated, say, the need for having, say, those kind of encryptions or passwords, right? I think back in 2008, I also recollect, say, Google Chrome, right, which we very say commonly use today as a browser. They put into place, say, a incognito mode, right, which is used. Although, yeah, today we are having, say, propaganda around the fact that it is a misconception, and say we are not completely anonymous while using it, that is hiding browsing from, say, other websites, ISPs. But then, yeah, that was the intent of why the incognito mode was developed and it was invented. Thereafter, there's recently now a new concept, right, wherein we call this era, right, the next phase of evolution, right, of mankind, as being, say, completely around data, right, the data being the new oil. So wherein there's, say, a popular phrase which highlights this, right, the valuation of personal data. On one of the conferences I had attended, I do recollect one of our profound, say, speakers. He was able to also relate data to something called antimatter, which was used once upon a time when, say, nuclear bombs, right, atomic, say, launches had happened in the past World War, right, in Hiroshima, Nagasaki. So there, say, antimatter, say, the quantity, okay, was minimal, and the way, say, you are able to store antimatter, you need to, say, transform it into, say, a gas form, right, and only then can you store it. So similar is the case around, say, data, right, the way we have to actually protect personal data, sensitive data, right. So today the valuation of antimatter, if you see, 1/100th of a nanogram of antimatter is equal to the cost of 1 kilo of gold, right? So that is the, say, valuation. Similar is going to be the case of data, right? As we already know, some of these, say, big companies that are controllers of, say, data or processors of the data, they say hold, say, the valuation which is lesser than the GDP of certain countries, right? So yeah, so the coming to a thought provoking, say, saying, which I have picked by Edward Snowden, right? He says, arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say, right? So that is what the Indian government has done, right? They have put into place this constitutional right, right, which empowers the citizens, and it makes us, say, gives us that comfort, gives us that confidence, right, that we have that, say, constitutional right to be used and exercised when required, right. It is a similar case wherein you would find, say, in the Western countries, you don't say have, I wouldn't want to take specific examples, but there, say, banking systems, right, at times they don't have the kind of stringency of security controls. Like, imagine, say, one of the state banks in India and using their applications, right? So you won't have a similar experience over there or similar stringency over there. Why is that so? Just because, say, they have those, say, privacy laws, right, that protect their citizens. And something similar is the road that we are now, say, going to be, say, starting on, right, from here. And once we have this provisional right constitutionalized completely and, say, launched, then I think the next phase is going to also be the DIA, right, which the government has already spoken of, which is going to also emanate and cover, say, some of the, say, events that take place today, some of the, say, other, say, concerns that, say, the data subject, or as you say would call it, the individual, right, the data subject gets, say, has to face, right, with the exploits, the kind of exploits today. So those kind of things will now get covered in the upcoming DIA.
And how do you see like while we have gone through that, how do you also see like a breach response post that? So
Yeah.
as you have mentioned a lot about the breaches that will happen, and it's, anyways it will happen. So how do you see a breach response also, sir? Like while going through the same process and procedure? Yeah.
Right. So, prior to say going into the breach response, I just want to take a say maybe quick stab at the DPDPA, right? Firstly, for the audience, right, sake of people who do not know about the DPDPA. So that this is currently say a significant piece of legislation which is recently got enacted to govern collection, storage, processing of personal data, right? Specifically digital personal data, whatever say personal data is in the digital form. And the DPDPA, it represents India's effort to establish a comprehensive legal framework for data protection. And it also aligns it then with global standards while addressing the unique needs and concerns that we face today as a country. So the at a high level, right, at a very high level, the purpose of this DPDPA is firstly, like I spoke, to empower the citizens of the nation, right, to empower say the data subjects, to promote say transparency, right, of say the data that is collected, used, processed, right, for personal data specifically, right, from these individuals, and then thereafter to enhance say accountability, right? So by enhancing accountability, we are going to be putting a break, brake, to say the ongoing situation wherein say a lot of e-commerce portals, say other sites today that collect data, they will be put into task, right, in case they are collecting something that is extraneous and not say purposeful, right, the purpose limitation aspect. Then there is say ensuring the security of that data, right? That is something that is going to come along with this act. And then facilitating lawful data transfers and protecting children's data, right? So it covers all of these facets, right? It is also going to be imperative in this say digital landscape, wherein it'll help strengthen the trust, right, in the ecosystems. It will help align with say global standards, like I mentioned. It will empower say consumers say rights over their personal data. It will help say boost the innovation and compliance. It will also help say safeguarding national interests, right? And lastly, it will encourage say responsible use of data, right? So essentially this act is a landmark law that has been brought into India's digital governance framework, which will say reflect the country's commitment to protecting the privacy and rights of its citizens in this new digital age. Right. That is something that I wanted to cover before say moving to privacy breach. Right. So now moving on to say the privacy breach aspect, which is the topic for today's session. Privacy breach usually, as per say DPDPA, it can occur when there is unauthorized or unlawful access or acquisition, use, disclosure, or destruction of this digital personal data, right, that we are talking about. Now, such breaches can lead to compromise of confidentiality, integrity, availability, the CIA triad, right, which say security of the information revolves around, and then the potential harm, right, that it could cause to individuals whose data has been exposed, right, due to this privacy breach. So let me thereafter go also into the circumstances, right, in order to say adhere with the privacy law. So what does one need to do under these circumstances? So you need to, as per the act, say perform mandatory reporting, right? And this is yet to be of course published as part of the rules that is currently in the draft state. So we have a 72-hour window, okay, which has been say published with the draft, within which say the fiduciary need to report it to the board, right, the Data Protection Board of India. So that is the timeline that is allowed, and failure to do so, it can result in penalties, right? And then there are these hefty penalties that will be decided upon, right? which range up to say 250 crores, right? As you see on the say, I think the next slide covers that. So 250 crores is approximately $30 million, right? Depending on the severity nature of the breach. Also, say liability for damages, right, by these organizations. Say the liabilities that the individual suffers, those can be say part of financial compensation or any other forms of restitution, right? So there are all of those detailed say liabilities that are covered as part of this say act. The main say additional say coverage is also around reputational damage, right? Which you would have say recently noticed with the CrowdStrike event, right? Wherein it led to their stocks say plunging by about say 14%, right? So those are the kind of say reputational damage hit that the organizations take, right, when say these disclosures or announcements would take place, right? Apart from that, say the corrective measures, right? So the board would require the organization to take certain corrective measures, right, for their continuous say improvement by conducting audits, making say implementation of stronger security measures, and even say at times they would want them to halt the data processing activities, any ongoing activities that they're doing. So these are say the kind of say predicaments that now the organizations will be made say accountable and responsible for, right, in case they say suffer a data privacy breach.
Yeah, and I think while we have gone through our discussion about the DPDP, then we went to our discussion about being a fiduciary, how the data protection board would work for you when when a breach happens. Let's also kind of have some sanity checks from a DPDP perspective, not from a, obviously, if a breach will happen, we'll need a security audit, we'll need to see how deep the breach was. So many things to do, but also certain things to do in terms of a notification, for example, right? Also
Yes.
in terms of, let's say, informing our customers, right? Like that a breach has happened, or informing our B2B customers that a breach is, so that they can inform their customers, right? B2B2C. So what's your take on that? Like when you see a privacy angle to this, how do you see the breach going a bit more than a general breach in India today? Yeah.
Right. So I I would again like to go into say some of the say facts related to some uh, organizations that handled their breach notification very well recently, right? So in I think back in 2022 there was a ransomware attack that say Cisco faced, right? And Cisco was targeted say by a ransomware say malicious actor, and that involved theft of some internal data, right? And in their response they disclosed this breach very transparently and worked with the law enforcement body, right, the local law enforcement body and cybersecurity experts to investigate this incident. And there are say other examples too, like say T-Mobile, right? They also faced a data breach back in 2021. And Apple too. Apple faced a say terrible incident. It was related to a spyware, Pegasus spyware. You must have heard of it, right? Which then say they quickly issued a patch for the same, and they also filed a lawsuit against the group when they took legal action. So essentially, say the takeaways from such instances are that these organizations are expected to say maintain transparency. They are expected to take say swift actions, and then they are also supposed to say provide say utmost support, right, to the data subjects. And then there are say also examples where in organizations say didn't handle say such incidents very well. There's a known say incident related to Twitter, right, wherein say they faced a breach, and say there were say over 5 million user records that were exposed due to that, but the company say didn't inform, right, until months later. Similar was also the case of say Uber, right? They had experienced a breach back in say 2016, wherein say personal information was exposed, but say the breaches were not disclosed, right? So that delayed communication, or say lack of transparency, causes say such kind of say incidents, and that is where the act will come into play, right? That is where say the institutional right of say protecting the consumer, right, come into play.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of sums up a bit about the breach for today, for our audience. So, and that kind of gives us information about how, so yeah, that gives us information about how the breach has to be responded. And by the way, I think it's a great day to have this webinar going just before the anniversary, right?
Yes.
So that has also happened, and and I want to thank you, right, for giving us this information and coming to our platform and speaking to the audience, Mr. Ali. And I want to thank the audience to be here. And guys, we meet Saturday 11 a.m. So I think the next time we want to catch up will be Saturday 11 a.m. again. And Mr. Ali, if you want to kind of also give a few more details, if there are, you want to kind of share before we get ahead, so please do that. And then
Sure. So I just wanted to summarize, say like I think on the slide too, the first term techno legal measures, right? It says talks about say a mix of technical safeguards and say legal compliance measures, right? So all of these will come into say act soon, right? All of these say the organizations will need to take care of. Some of those that are say ICT kind of organizations or service providers, they make use of a product like Qualys too, right? That can say do wonders and help them automate say, such critical activities. But yeah, those will be say adapted to soon, right? Because it's say something where in the law will come into place, right? They will have to follow that law. There'll be say the law mentions say data principles, right, as being the data subjects. Along with that, they also have a role called a consent manager, right, who will be required to take consent, informed consent. There's a role called say the data fiduciary, right, that takes accountability or say decides on the processing activities. And then of course there'll be a DPO role also that will be appointed by the board, and the board of course on top of it will be say taking into consideration all of these other measures, right, related to penalties, related to say other say services, continuity of services and those kind of aspects. So yeah, I think this is a great say step forward by the government, and I'm looking forward to say getting it say in force soon, once say we have the rules published.
yeah, I think that's the same thought that we all are in, and I think that's, thank you for joining in, thank you for giving us this data, thank you for being on the Saro platform. I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank everyone for joining in. And we will see each other again on Saturday 11 a.m. folks. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks, Akash. Good day all. Bye.